Gemmel Moore and Timothy Dean were two amazing souls trying to find their way in life with their friends by their side. They both loved spending time with their friends, being private yet loving, and living in LA. These men have more similarities than what it seems. These two were intentionally drugged until they overdosed by the same man in his LA apartment, literally 2 years apart. Ed Buck, an openly known gay Democratic donor, was also secretly a racist sadomasochist who used his power or privilege to camouflage. Did no one listen to his victims because they were black and or gay? Could Ed Buck have been stopped? Why was Ed Buck so protected?
Hey, word on the street, I'm a suspect. Hanging with the killers in the projects. Tail on a barrel, keep quiet. Catch a nigga slipping from behind. OG, Bobby.
Hey y'all, hey, I'm Judy and we are back with another SW and True Crime video, or SWers and True Crime. I've decided to cover these cases in the true crime community because I've noticed that there really wasn't much exposure on these cases and they're happening right in front of us. I also want to say happy Black History. I don't like to say month because personally it's a lifetime for us and it's not just a month. This case is a lot, so I would just want to tell you to buckle up. If you like calling people out in the government, this case is especially for you. This case also has some mentions of substance abuse as well as racism. So if this is something that you do not want to hear, I completely understand and I hope to see you in another video. I just want to give my condolences to the family, and I mean absolute no disrespect. I've researched this information, which is public information, and I've compiled it all into one video for you guys. I decided to do this video to shine light on what's going on all around us. I tend to do all of the cases like that because honestly, I never knew about these cases until I just decided to research these. It blows my mind about what's going on around us that we don't know. All of the information that I am stating actually is in this lovely documentary, which I highly recommend that you watch. Again, it's extremely dangerous for everyone, not only S workers. Let's get into our next case. Okay, y'all, so this case has a lot of information. So grab a snack, grab a cold drink, or maybe some hot chocolate or some hot tea. Matter of fact, y'all, I was supposed to make me some tea. Be right back. Okay, so this case has multiple victims, so I will be sharing their story of each and then the details of the trial. Okay? All right, let's get into it. Gemmel Arte Moore, or Juelz, was born January 14th, 1991 to Letitia Nixon in Los Angeles, California. He was the oldest child of 5 and would frequently help his mother, being that his mother was a single mother working 2 jobs. In an interview with Ashley Marie Preston, Letitia said he was like a father figure. He would help her with cleaning the house, cooking for his siblings. He took the role of being the older sibling very seriously. But overall, everybody saw him as just a humorous person. I also felt that it was super heartfelt that she called him her Bookie. I just felt like that is just so cute, like such a mom thing. Like, every mom has like a cute pet name for their children. It's just adorable. He attended Victor Valley High School in LA and later came out to his mother at the age of 17. She literally recalls this like it was yesterday. She told him that like she already knew, she didn't judge him, and that she literally loved him the same. His friends basically saw Gemmel as just a positive person who just always smiled. They also noted that he was very shy and mysterious, and he also kept his relationships very, very private. Gemmel was part of the house and or ballroom community. Ballroom isn't what you think it is. For those that have no idea on what ballroom or house is, in the 1960s, many individuals could not openly express their sexuality and gender identity within their biological families. To fill this void, groups called houses or families emerged. House serves as the ball participants' only source of family. Many queer youth join balls at a young age and sometimes live with their houses if they cannot safely live with their families that's back at home. House parents serve the heads of the houses and are like role models and mentor for their children. In the early 1970s, Black and Latinx, gay, trans, and queer people developed a thriving subculture in house balls where they could openly express themselves freely and find acceptance within a marginalized community. It was here where the world of drag pageantry, which often favored white contestants, evolved into competitions that spanned a variety of categories, including Vogue battles. All of these events can trace their origins as far back as the late 1800s. Ballroom culture is now widely seen, celebrated, and honestly appropriated in mainstream across the fashion industry, music videos, basically just everyday TV and social media. You have TV shows like Pose, Legendary, and so many more. The ballroom community is so huge in LA, and the community absolutely loved and embraced Gemmel. He lived with his house mother Gia, and they all felt like their family was stuck together like glue. His house mother said that Gemmel was a homebody who loved to goof around and joke, but his alter ego, Juelz Carter, was quiet but with a very deep voice. He preferred Juelz, so during the rest of this case until we get to the trial, and even sometimes during the trial, I will be calling him Juelz out of respect for him. Like a lot of men of color, keeping his masculinity was very big for him, and he didn't really care to share with others his troubles. He wanted to go back to school, but unfortunately lost his job. Juelz, after this, went to his housefather to ask him about S-work. His housefather was very hesitant, shunned him away from it because, you know, of all the things we go through as S-workers, like needy clients and etc. Just basically all the problems that we face that you kind of just want to shy people away from sometimes. And that he reassured Juelz that, you know, his safety was the most important to him. Juelz took his advice, but ultimately decided to do full service. Gia, his house mother, felt that he was very cautious for quite a while. Juelz recalls the first time that he met with the client Ed Buck. Ed Buck is an openly gay, overall known Democratic donor in the LA area. I'll be sharing more about Mr. Buck, or should we call him the devil's donor? Anyway, Ed Buck was messaging Juelz on Adam for Adam or another site repeatedly, but Juelz never responded. A friend eventually introduced the two. He told Juelz that it was just a quick $600 to basically just do nothing and chat for about an hour or so. It was this first time that Juelz would shoot up methamphetamine or meth. After this, Ed would tell Juelz to model in his underwear for him. As time went on, Ed would degrade Juelz more and more while he was under the influence. His friends recall noticing Juelz change before their eyes. They advocated for him to get help with substance abuse, but unfortunately he just didn't listen. His closest friends or house ultimately just decided that it was best to just kick him out of the house for safety reasons, as well as just for him to get himself together. But from this, It caused Juelz to go stay with Ed Buck, and this would be the worst decision that he could make. In the documentary, they shared a lot of his diary, but I decided that I'll share some context just to give a little bit of where his mindset was at. He wrote, "I pray that I get my life together and make sense. I help so many people, but I can't seem to help myself. I honestly don't know what to do. I become addicted to drugs, and the worst one at that. Ed Buck is the one to thank. He gave me my first injection of crystal sick meth. It was very painful, but after all the troubles, I became addicted to the pain and fetish and fantasy." He later wrote, "Someone needs to save me soon. The only person in my corner is the person who turned me this way. I honestly don't care to live this way anymore. I don't want to die. I feel like I've done way too much that this lifetime allows. If it didn't hurt too bad, I'd kill myself. But I'd let Ed Buck do it for now." On December 3rd, 2016, he wrote for the last time, "I miss my grandma." Beginning of 2017, one of his good friends spoke with his mother about his current situation. His mother reached out to him, and shortly after, Juelz went to Texas to be with family just to get that sense of just feeling like him again. He just ultimately wanted to be with his grandma and his mother. So, in the spring of 2017, Juelz did just that and went to go visit his friends and family back at home. Everyone just truly wanted the best for him. His friends did note that even though he was clean from meth, his mind was not mentally prepared for the recovery. Okay, so who is this Ed Buck? Well, what we know is that he is originally from Arizona and made around $1 million selling a courier company, which sparked his choice somehow into getting into becoming a political donor, which I don't know how that leads. I think courier is like mail from what I looked up, y'all. I don't know. Furthermore, he was an openly gay conservative Republican, funny, right? Yeah, who started with the Meacham campaign. Evan Meacham was racist. Yeah, he was. Okay, Evan Meacham was racist from what I could find. While governor, Meacham became known for statements and actions that were widely perceived as racially charged or just downright racist. In 1989, Ed Buck decided to make a redemption tour and championed for MLK's birthday to be recognized. Okay. He wanted, as you can just tell, he wanted to be seen or get back in the good graces with the Black community, but just overall, his actions did not show that he was an ally at all. Ed was first arrested in 1983 for public sexual indecency for grabbing the crotch of another man in a bookstore. Y'all imagine you're minding your business, reading a book, and here comes this perv grabbing your good stuff. Anywho, later in his life, he was indicted by a Maricopa County grand jury on a charge of attempting to obtain a narcotic through fraud or deceit. He underwent an approved program by the court that required him to be tested for drugs every Wednesday for a year. After receiving a lot of slack from the Republican Party about him being gay, but not about the narcotics or the sexual indecency though, Buck switched to the Democratic Party because he just felt like it was a better choice. Okay. He then moved to the Hollywood area in the 90s and became a regular donor to a variety of known or popular political campaigns like Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and others, especially ones advocating for LGBTQ issues. Buck was also known for his advocacy and animal rights. He wanted to get rid of the use of animal fur, particularly in the West Hollywood area. So West Hollywood became the first fur-free city, thanks to Ed Buck. He also ran for West Hollywood City Council and became the vice president for the Stonewall Democratic Club, which is very well known in, I think, LA. But in his spare time, Ed would love to meet with men on Adam for Adam for party and play, specifically black men. Ed's sexual kink was pushing the limits of black men. He would tell them that he would want to see how they would react to meth because their African blood can take it. Better yet, he said, you know your N-word blood can take it. Yeah. He got off using the N-word a lot and other very derogatory racist terms. As I talked about in the Courtney Clinton case, race play is indeed a kink, but it's heavily rooted in racism. I don't know where, after researching this case, I wanted to do like more research on race play and just seeing, because I don't know if y'all know, like kinks come from, I don't know if y'all know the id, the ego, super ego, but it comes from like your repressed desires. And just knowing this and then just seeing how the Courtney Clinton case played out. And for you, it might be so, it's just something that weirdly turns you on, but it's just, to some others, some people are so sick and they don't want the best for you. And it just shows with these cases that I do, and it just truly shows that it may be a kink, it may be hot or sexy, but to them, it's definitely, it is hot. But to them, I guess, but it's also really racist and really dangerous. Because you mix with a hot and heavy racist, I'm a little scared. Not gonna lie. His biggest motive was that he personally wanted to inject the person with meth, like some sick doctor. He would also like to inject via penile injections based on statements from victims. He would also like to take photos and pictures of these victims as in like some type of keepsake, or I guess protective reasons, being that he was like higher up. So he might kept the pictures as like some type of sabotage. So we don't truly know. But another lesson moment. BDSM is a variety of often erotic practices or role playing involving bondage, discipline, dominance, and submission, sadomasochism, which is inflicting pain, and other related interpersonal dynamics. In this case, I believe that Ed is a deranged sadomasochist, meaning that he did or does get off on inflicting pain on others, but he's deranged. Sadomasochism means they enjoy to inflict physical or mental suffering on another person who derives pleasure from experiencing pain. In this case, he is not the true definition of a sadomasochist because almost all of his victims were not expecting racism, drugs, and etc. majority of the time. People that enter his place have recalled that his apartment was just so dark, and that it had a fog machine, and They also noted that there was this one bright toolbox that he kept all of his drugs, his needles, whips, dildos, other adult things like that, which he hid behind a flamed curtain. His apartment was a known hotspot for drug users, and you can kind of guess what kind of drug users, particularly what color. And honestly, the FBI got a note of it and sat and watched him. Juelz' friends said that Juelz didn't think that anything would happen or even foul play would occur, but as time went on, Ed would continue to push more and more boundaries. He would basically want more and more from him while offering him more and more money. I just can't stop thinking that this man was like waving money in front of his face while he was high out of his mind. Like, just completely just taking advantage of somebody that doesn't have. And just throwing money in their face, y'all. Like, just the disrespect. It blows me. This brings us to July 27th, 2017. There was a 911 call that someone was in distress in Ed Buck's residence. Ambulance arrived, but sadly, the person was already deceased. They proceeded to take the body out of the home and continue on with their daily task. Ed told LAPD that the person's name was Gemmel Moore. It was his friend that just arrived from Texas. Ed further went on to say that he saw him inject meth and smoke weed, but after, Gemmel became extremely hot to touch. Ed said that he placed ice packs on his chest and noticed that Gemmel dozed off, so he went to his bedroom for a few minutes. When he went back to the living room, Gemmel was unresponsive. Police noted that there was no foul play detected, being that the victim would exchange drugs for sex. First of all, why would you leave someone that passed out from possibly overheating? Like, isn't that fishy? Like, why walk away? Okay, second of all, there was no investigation because they found out he was a sex worker. Like, whew. There should have been an investigation, period. 26-year-old Gemmel Moore, or Juelz, died of a methamphetamine overdose in Buck's home in Hollywood, California. According to the coroner's report, paramedics found him naked on a mattress in the living room with a male pornography movie playing on the television. His friends were completely shocked because, as I said earlier, like, everybody thought, well, I didn't really say earlier, but just everybody thought like he was still in a good place in Texas. Everybody thought he was just still with his family. Nobody knew he was in LA. It completely shocked the entire LA house community. Apparently, Ed Buck paid for the flight for him to return back to LA, but no one knew. So let's discuss the evidence found. They said it was like a shrine of drugs, according to the people that went to Ed's house. Juelz also wrote in his journal that Ed forced him to do like a 4 and a 2 day period, basically a binger. So immediately when I heard this, I automatically thought of this psychology class that I took in undergrad, and I immediately thought of just drug thresholds, and overvamping came to mind. Overvamping is the term used to describe what one would call an overdose, but on cocaine or meth. A factor that can cause overvamping is when you're in a weird or uncomfortable situation or with someone who is basically sketching you out, which I definitely think that Juelz was in 100%, especially from being with so much love and family and then returning back to this weird person or this sketchy person. Yeah, Overvamping can lead to heart attack, stroke, seizure, and overheating. To add, low drug tolerance or having experienced a reduction in the drugs being used can increase the likelihood of an overdose if the substance is particularly potent or taken in large amounts. So I definitely think that he took way too much that his body could take, being that he was clean for a long period of time. But get this, y'all. Ed Buck was not held accountable at all. Not at all. Letitia, Gemmel's mother, began to call out the West Hollywood Sheriff's Department, demanding a thorough investigation on the accidental death of her son. His friends and family also went on to city council meetings, begging them to pursue an investigation and also offer immunity for people testifying against Ed. Letitia also found photos of another man heading to Ed's apartment the same exact day and time, y'all, that Gemmel's body was literally being pulled out of his house. The deputies literally shooed the other person away. So like he was going to have one victim in after the other. Ed Buck was never in handcuffs or further questioned. Jasmine Canick, a Black lesbian journalist and political commentator, brought heat to this case and made it public. The former mayor, John Duran, was also Ed Buck's personal lawyer and used his position in city council to threaten others into not saying anything or reporting anything to the police about Ed Buck. John Duran would even threaten jail. So this made absolutely no witnesses come forward. They were so scared of Ed. Later on in 2018, they decided that no charges will be filed after the DA, Jackie Lacey, someone that Ed donated to, gave the green light to move forward. They claim that it was a thorough investigation. Jackie Lacey goes on statement to say that individuals came forward in 2013 that they didn't really find them credible. However, people or the individuals that tried to speak out say that they only took 2 out of the 30 statements. While the further questioning was occurring, Ed kept badgering Tim Dean, another Black gay man in the community, to clear his name since he's known him for 10+ years. Tim Roy Williams, also known as Timothy Dean, was born March 24th, 1963 in Florida. Tim came from a really big family with a lot of children. Apparently, they didn't have the structure monetarily to take care of Tim. His parents decided to give Tim to their family friends who lived across the street. His friends recall it having a huge effect on Tim. He honestly just felt thrown away. He was a super athlete, and sadly, he had to mask his sexuality, being that he was a Black man, especially in that day and time. Timothy was a graduate of Tampa's East Bay High School in the class of 1982. He moved to California in 2002. His friends deemed him basically as just a dependable person. Like if you needed anything, Tim would be the guy to call. Like he just had your back. Everybody said he just had a very special heart to help others around him. His heart caused him to work on a couple of campaigns by putting up signs and also just doing like phone calls. And this is how he met Ed Buck. Tim and his friends would go on adventures and travel. They would frequently participate in the Paris Gay Games, where Tim would dominate in almost every single sport he played, but especially basketball. His nickname on the court was TMD, or Too Much Drama. I think that is so cute, y'all. I just love that. TMD, Too Much Drama. Period. Love it. Timothy was also a member of the Lambda Basketball League in 1991 and was co-captain of the LA Heat. He thoroughly enjoyed playing basketball for the National Gay Basketball Association League in California with his good friend Walter. He was later inducted into the Gay Basketball Hall of Fame in 2001. All in all, Tim was always the standout athlete in almost every event he was in. He loved fashion, basketball of course, going on hikes, and home decor. His friends would note that he would be the type to travel with candles and fabrics, according to his good friends Walter and Jeffrey. I just think that is just I want to be the friend to, like, she's known to be always have her candles, always have her fabrics, like, just that type person, just top, like, you just got all your shit together, you know? He would keep his friend groups very separate, and honestly just wouldn't share too much. He was very private. He battled with depression and felt like the world was just so harsh to him. He just had a sense of just feeling like, why me? You know? He was in school. He also was working, living paycheck to paycheck. And he was just on his own trying to make it. But he was just overall thrilled about graduating. He got his AA degree in social and behavioral science and also got baptized, which just made him feel empowered. He got a big break and became a fashion consultant at Bloomingdale's and worked diligently at Saks Fifth Avenue in Beverly Hills. Like, that is huge. Where he was one of the top salespersons. That's even more huge, y'all. Like, what? That's big. Okay, anyway. Somewhere along in his, like, adulthood, Tim also worked in the adult industry. His friends said that they were all aware, but no one knew his alias because, like I said earlier, he kept things private, and he liked to keep those things separate. His adopted mother was in a nursing home, and he had to pay for the nursing home. He had to make things happen. And I don't blame him. His family understood, and they honestly just said as long as he was safe. Safety was a big thing for Tim. Even so, Tim would make sure to even warn his friends to never go over Ed Buck's house. Tim showed his friends all of the messages, and like in the documentary, it was like, his friends said it was like scrolls of messages. Like, Ed was blowing his line just off of like meeting him from the campaigns. And he confided in his friend that he would never go near his house because he wasn't trying to end up dead. But somehow, Ed's power and connections somehow was attractive to Tim, according to his good friend. Tim's friend said that, honestly, Ed rubbed him the wrong way and gave him a very, very eerie feeling. On Tim's hikes with one of his friends, he would tell him how much Ed would offer him just to come over and get high with him. Ed was also sharing with Tim how the police was beginning to question him more and more about Gemmel's accidental overdose. Tim was trying to distance himself from everything. And even Tim told his friend that he felt that Ed took advantage of Gemmel because Ed Buck was the devil. That came out of Tim's mouth, y'all. Everyone took Tim's word because Tim would never steer them wrong. Everybody could trust him. Everyone adored him. On January 7th, 2019, ambulance was called and arrived at Ed Buck's apartment around 1 a.m. Paramedics conducted CPR, but the victim was sadly deceased. Ed was home at the time. Tim Dean was found dead in Ed Buck's home from a methamphetamine overdose. One of Tim's friends said that they had plans the very next day. His friends all knew Tim's whereabouts or what they thought of his plans the day before. Tim would usually go to his favorite bar to relax after work for a drink. But Ed Buck's apartment would be on the way from the bar. They believe that he went to Ed's after a night of drinking and his guard was completely down. One of his friends went to Tim's residence to pick him up for the plans that they had planned. But as soon as he got there, he noticed that all of his lights were on. He honestly assumed that he was busy and just went home. Immediately, all of the news began to pour in, and all of his friends began to text him the news that the body that was just found at Ed's. But one of his friends immediately knew, after seeing the body, that it was Tim. The news, the media, basically vilified and just painted Tim to be just this porn star found dead, found slain, or just found, not really found dead or found slain, because they didn't say that language. They just said like dead from overdose. They literally called it the death of S-worker plague. Like, what even is that? Can y'all comment what y'all think that is? Because I've been trying to really figure out what that means. The plague is drugs or something? Who knows? Okay. Autopsy came back and it said that the cause of death was a methamphetamine and ethanol overdose. He had an injection mark on his arm, which his friends found very, very, very odd because, one, he never ever used drugs. They said they only saw him like drink and barely get drunk at that. They also stated that he hated needles, like had a fear of needles. He hated drawing blood. He would call doctors vampires and would even faint at the sight of a needle, y'all. According to Ed, Tim was acting strangely and even tied a shirt around his neck like a noose. Which I highly doubt that, just knowing his racial background. But Ed said that he untied it and then Ed decided to go take a shower. He found Tim unresponsive when he got out the shower and attempted CPR for 15 minutes and then called 911. 15 minutes, y'all. Not calling the police as you attempting CPR or... yeah. Ed Buck's lawyer went on to the media saying that Ed Buck only was friends with these individuals and that they just simply did not handle their lives well. Whatever that means. He labeled S-workers as if they deserved to be murdered and subjected to these kind of things. After Tim's death, the press began to pick up more and more. Jerome Spear, Juelz's great friend, began to lead more protests month after month, like not like letting up either, being so loud and outspoken, just a leader in like all of the footwork, basically. Police began to look into Ed further, especially with his involvement in narcotics. News began to cover the story more and more.
Wealthy political donor who's hobnobbed with the likes of Hillary Clinton and Jerry Brown wasn't talking when we confronted him about what happened in his West Hollywood apartment that left 2 men dead. Buck stays mostly in his apartment. On this day, our surveillance cameras caught him coming out to meet the UPS truck. Then he drove to this nearby 7-Eleven and met up with this black man, probably in his 20s, who was eating an ice cream. They went inside for about an hour, then left to go to the Beverly Center, where we tried to talk with him. Mr. Buck, I'm David Goldstein with CBS 2 News, sir. Sir, what's going on in your apartment, sir? Can you tell us that? Do you think your political influence is keeping you a free man now, sir? Is this young man who's with you now, is he in any harm? Is he in any harm, this young man that's with you? The man he was with stood off to the side, not wanting to be on TV. You know who he is, right? Okay. That's all I want to know. But through it all, Buck didn't explain what happened in his apartment that left 2 men dead. Why don't you answer any questions? You had 2 people who died in your house.
Because you're being an
Sir, I'm asking questions.
Video, as you can see, he just showed absolute no remorse. Like, he felt like nothing really happened. According to an FBI agent that was involved in drug rings, they found John Doe, Ed Buck's number 3 victim, or victim number 3. He overdosed 2 times while with Ed Buck. He overdosed with Ed Buck. He then went to the ER, got released, and went right back to Ed Buck's house, where Ed would overdose him again. This would lead Ed to be arrested on September 17th, 2019 on state drug and battery charges. His bail was set at $4 million. The DA came out to say that the claims made prior from Gemmel's case were thrown out because the detectives did an illegal search without a warrant on the drug toolbox. She admitted this only after the sheriff's department began to throw her under the bus. So she just came out and started telling the truth, which she should have just told Gemmel's mother this from the beginning. Like, that would have saved the victim's family just so much of just trying and figuring out why nobody would pick the case up. Just telling the truth. God, I just feel so bad. Like, that could have just saved so much, you know? Ed Buck appeared in criminal court, but his arraignment was pushed until October 10th, 2019. Ed's lawyers, Christopher Darden, best known for being part of the prosecution team in the murder trial of O.J. Simpson, and Ludlow Creary, portrayed his accusers as untrustworthy drug addicts who simply were just out to make money. Well, he asked, "Did you inject or smoke any meth prior to coming to testify?" This is what Darden asked Dane Brown, one of, like, a witness and victim. Dane responded, "Absolutely not." Like, are you serious? Ed's federal criminal trial just kept getting delayed and delayed due to COVID-19. While the delays were happening, Ed felt like it was just a grand idea that he would try to get them to suppress some evidence against him. You know, to lighten the load a little bit. You know, I don't want to be in jail that long. I'm old. You know, that type of thing. But anyway, Federal Judge Christina Snyder declares that the trial will commence July 13th, 2021 at 9 a.m. The verdict concluded after a 2-week trial that featured harrowing testimony by men hired by Ed. They basically told the whole jury in the court that they were hired to show off their bodies in underwear, get high on crystal meth, and the party drug GHB, which I don't know what that is, so maybe that's a good thing. Yeah, okay. Excerpts from Buck's hundreds of graphic videos and photos of just his drug and sex sessions just left spectators wincing. It was that bad, y'all. Videos played at the trial showed Buck touching some of the men sexually when they were asleep or unconscious. I just can't imagine sitting in there, y'all. This trial wound up giving voices to the black men that were victimized. Some of them were harmless, just scrolling on Adam for Adam, looking for a good time. Some were escorts, trying to make a living when they met Ed. One was simply living in a tent under a 105 freeway overpass. He literally targeted just communities that he felt like nobody cared about. He potentially, like he intentionally target inner city black and brown people on purpose. On July 27th, 2021, exactly 4 years after Gemmel's death, Ed Buck was found guilty of 2 counts of distribution of methamphetamine resulting in death, 4 counts of distribution of methamphetamines, 1 count of maintaining a drug-involved premises, and 2 counts of enticement to travel in interstate commerce for prostitution. I believe that all these cases, or all of these counts, equal to 9. So he was tried guilty of all 9 counts. His sentencing trial was on April 14th, 2022, and Ed Buck, at 66 years old, was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. He won't be eligible for release until he serves at least, I believe, 25 and a half years. So that's 85% of his sentence. Ed was ordered to pay $47,271.25 in restitution fees. Prosecutors asked for the payments to be made immediately. However, Worksman, which I believe is like his prosecution lawyer or something, I don't truly know where he fits in on his lawyer team, but he argued that his client first needed to pay back his mother $1 million and then $300,000 to the IRS. I wish I can call my mom up and be like, "Hey mom, can I get $1 million? Can I get $1 million just for fun? Like, can y'all imagine that? Calling your mom, say, I just need to borrow $1 million. The privilege." Throughout the hearing, Buck was visibly agitated at his lack of control and authority over the proceedings. You even could see him, I believe it's like in an anti-restraint thing. I'll show it here. I'm not sure what it's called. I'm forgetting what it's called. He tried several times to speak over his attorney and grew frustrated, causing Worksman to have to stop the hearing and to just confer with Ed to make sure, like, are you okay? Like, you know you're going to jail, right? Type of thing. Like, relax. According to prosecutors, Ed's sweet mommy puts $1,000 on his commissary books every 6 months since he's been in jail. What a sweet lady. According to prosecutors, Ed's sweet mommy puts $1,000 on his commissary books every 6 months since he's been in jail. What a sweet lady. His sweet mom. Just a mama's boy looking out. Like, you know, I'm not even gonna go on. I was about to say, do you know your son's a racist? But I'm pretty sure she knows that. She raised him. Anyway, Ed continues to face several civil lawsuits, including 2 wrongful death lawsuits. In 2021, the Gemmel and Tim documentary came out for the world to see, and just so everybody can truly know the true stories about Gemmel and Tim. It is currently on YouTube Premium, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV. It's about an hour and a half, and it's basically about the victims' stories and testimonies, as well as just stories about Gemmel and Tim from the views of their loved ones. They did an amazing job talking about men in power and how they are protected, as well as the perspective of queer individuals, specifically gay Black men in LA. As usual, I will offer my tips or advice that may be helpful. For starters, if you're struggling with substance abuse, please know that you are not alone. There's a lot of resources that can help you go through your journey, and I will link them all below, as well as putting them right here for you. The rate of overdose deaths involving methamphetamines increased substantially from 2016 to 2022, with a sharp rise after 2018 and again in 2021. This trend mirrors the increase of overdose deaths involving methamphetamines with any opioids. With the rise of fentanyl, these numbers are constantly increasing. Second, never ever let your guard down. Trust your instincts, because 9 times out of 10 you can discern when things are not right. Like, you know your gut, you know yourself. Like, you know yourself. Trust your gut. If you feel uneasy Don't ignore it. Tell someone, like your family, your friends, others in the community, the police, or even write it down like Juelz did in this situation. Just please make sure that there's a record of your story. Last but certainly not least, try to decipher when someone is fetishizing you and trying to take advantage of you. It's honestly easier said than done because people honestly are wolves in sheep's clothing. People can be truly disgusting and intentionally try to dim some of the brightest lights we have out here. As for this case, Ed Buck is rotting in jail as I'm speaking, being that Judge Snyder denied his motion for acquittal, so he also won't be eligible for release until he's 91, so yeah. BDSM is okay when it is consensual and it is done safely. But when it is not consensual all the time, or just anything makes you feel out of whack, like, it definitely isn't safe. I believe that Ed is a racist sadomasochist who got a sick pleasure from murdering black men. Like, better yet, watching them die, because that's what he did. And I mean, his very conservative roots with him backing a known LA racist back in the day, and then him constantly targeting black men in S-work or men who were on the streets, just points him or just paints him as more in a racist weirdo light. Like, you can't tell me that man wasn't a racist weirdo, period. Like these faces he would get them to make, like monkey type faces, and just like all the deep rooted racist things, like, and then all the tones in the case, like it just painted gay black men in such a negative and disgusting light. And for LA to be such a like LGBTQ forward atmosphere, it just showed me that they came a long way. Because I just went to LA recently, like in the past year. They came a long way because, whew. Researching this case, I barely found any information other than the documentary, which I 100% recommend. I also found a few news articles. I found a great YouTube video with Roland Martin. But yeah, there wasn't really much like Indeed coverage other than the just thorough and great research they already have on the case that they had in the documentary, as well as their website they have. On November 4th, 2020, LA County DA Jackie Lacey lost her re-election race to George Gascon. John Duran lost his bid for re-election for the West Hollywood City Council. And overall, in the wake of Tim and Juelz's death, the West Hollywood Sheriff's Bureau established a protocol that in all fatal overdose cases, detectives will be dispatched to do a primary, thorough investigation into the possibility of foul play. I found the GoFundMe of the Justice for Gemmel Defense Fund. I personally will be donating because of just all of the efforts and for them to go the extra mile to bring multiple queer black individuals justice. And I think that is so beautiful and so powerful, because there's so many queer black cases that there's no justice on because they're queer, because they're black. So I just have to. I just honestly wish somebody would have listened. The evidence that Ed Buck was a drug addict and predator was right there the entire time. Crime in the LGBTQ plus community happens so commonly, so frequently, and just adding S-work into it all, and that number triples. These cases deserve the same attention as all the others. I hope y'all are truly at peace. Juelz and Tim. All right, Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me in another SW and True Crime video. Make sure you let me know what you think about this case. This case was really crazy. I can't even talk. This case was really crazy, and like the first time we had like a political figure, I guess. Like, it's just kind of crazy. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. You hit subscribe so you can hear more true crime videos. And also comment your thoughts. Comment what you think. Comment if you also want to see more cases, or if you know a case you want me to cover. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure you go binge watch my other stuff so you can stay tuned in all the stuff that's happening in the community. But yeah, I hope y'all have a great week, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.